is actually an interesting video, even if you're not interested in quantum or in science. It actually tells you a lot about how society works. By the way, I can only make 2 of these. Anybody's interested in blood red ostrich wallet, I'm making a couple blood red ostrich wallets. Looks like that. Super gigantic, dangerous bird from Australia. Yeah. Now, you can go on YouTube and find this video. There's like hundreds of copies on the internet, of YouTube, excuse me, of this video. They're all over the place. They're the exact same video. They're basically like 7 minutes long. I'm not actually interested in going after this guy. He's not around anymore. His name is Richard Feynman. The college kids really loved him because he'd actually give lectures, and there's videos of it on YouTube and all over the place. He'd give lectures, and he'd show up, and he's dressed really nice, atypical of a professor. He'd be smoking a big old cigarette in one hand, and the other hand he'd have a bourbon on the rocks. And all the college kids back in the day, man, he thought he was the coolest cat on there. Yeah, man, yeah, I talk about quantum, and have a little sip of his. It's quite fascinating. This is about the cult of authority, however. And of course, in a formal debate, there's no such thing as an authority. There's experts and there's novices. Yes? So you should watch that 7-minute video. It's really, really telling. And when I call this guy the god of quantum, that's not my appellation for him. People have actually, many countless people have put this guy on a pedestal. I brought a lot of attention to this 7-minute video, and there's an interviewer where you can't see. And he's asking him some really, really simple questions, no trick questions or anything like that. He says, well, what is this thing when you got 2 magnets and, you know, they're unlike like polarity and, you know, there's this force between them and you flip them over and they jump together. Very, very simple question. You know, what is this? What's going on? And he's sitting in his high back chair, Feynman is, and the interviewer says, his exact quote, says, this is perfectly reasonable question, Feynman says. He wiggles for 7 minutes. He literally does nothing other than wiggle and squirm in his chair. And he talks about Aunt Minnie slipping on the ice. I mean, it just seems too ridiculous. Right? This is the person, the individual that people hold up as the god of quantum. And there's nothing in nature that you could point to and say, look at that, it's quantum. People say, what about quantum computers? Like, well, that's ridiculous. That's concept reification. I can call my microwave a quantum heating device, but that doesn't give credence to quantum. You know? It's just people, does nobody have any logical sense anymore? Anyway, there's nothing in nature you could point to and call quantum. That's not my opinion. That's a fact. The so-called quantum computer, by the way, is nothing other than an electrical device. I know how they work and the algorithms and the choice between possibilities. I do know that, but that doesn't give credence to the term quantum. So he wiggles in and squirms in his chair. He talks about Aunt Minnie slipping on the ice, and then he starts talking about gravitational forces. Well, gravity is not a force. It's the inverse of a force. It's an acceleration. It's a move towards inertia. But we're discussing magnetism here. And then Feynman says, I'm not going to be able to give you an answer as to why magnets attract one another. And he says, I don't understand it in a framework, meaning the interviewer. Basically saying the interviewer is stupid. I can't explain it to you in a framework that you're more familiar with, which is a really fancy scholastic way of saying, I have got no clue. You know, I could really tell it to you, the answer, you know, because I know what it is. I gotta get my fake pipe out. I really know what it is, but, you know, you're just not smart enough to understand the question, you know, the answer. Now, if you actually read some of the comments, there's like 100 copies of this video on YouTube. 100. Just type in Feynman explains magnetism. F-E-Y. And people actually, I've been recommending this video. People watch it. It's like, here's an intelligence test, a real one. Listen to this guy asked a very simple, what is magnetism? And if you think he explains it, then you really failed the IQ test. I was scrolled down just a little bit like an hour ago, and someone says accurately, so this guy has no clue what magnetism is, but refuses to admit that, which is demonstrably true. You can draw no other conclusion if you have more than 2 brain cells. And right below that, so this guy is literally considered the god of quantum. And he says, oh, he's responding to this first person. I said, this guy's got no clue. He said, one of the founding fathers of quantum, meaning Feynman, quantum electrodynamics, hasn't got a clue what magnetism is? Ha ha ha! That's the joke of the century. There are people that have such a cult of authority. Where's Richard Feynman? His famous PhD in theoretical physics and written many books. I have quite a few of his books, actually. I've been through them, actually. This is just, it's absolute. People, it's just like somebody, well, this guy's a doctor, you know, I'm going to take his advice over yours. You know, obviously you don't want anybody like trying to set your broken leg. I mean, people have been doing it for ages. Or operate on you if you like have a gallstone or something, you know, that doesn't know how a medical degree proper technique. I mean, that's meatball surgery, however. Meatball surgery should and does require doesn't necessarily require a doctor, but it should require a doctor. You know, you want someone that's going to sew you up right. You know, however, there have been doctors that have actually removed the wrong limb, which is, oh my God, right? But physics should be rational. I mean, Mother Nature and natural order, you know, must be logical and rational. What these people espouse is no basis in reality. It's complete poppycock twaddle nonsense and hooey. It's just absolute flat-out hooey. Hooey is like an old word meaning just nonsense. I'm going to quote Walter Russell here. Nothing is more fantastical and a travesty of how nature works than is quantum theory. Its very basis has no relationship to reality. There you go. I'm going to actually quote Leonard Susskind. He's a PhD professor of theoretical physics. He's right alongside Feynman. This is the guy people look up to, Leonard Susskind. This is a quote from him. Where common sense and intuition fail, we, meaning the relativists, had to create a new form of intuition based upon abstract, meaning unreal, mathematics. Mathematics are descriptive. They're not explicative, by the way. When common sense fails, we must create, wait for it, uncommon sense. Uncommon sense is an inflated way of saying, nonsense! He basically said common sense, we can't understand via common sense, we created nonsense. This is Niels Bohr. Everything we call real is made up of things that cannot be real. Okay, we can kind of agree with it. This is a quote from Feynman himself. The more you see how strange nature behaves, it doesn't behave strangely at all. It only behaves strangely if you don't have a logical, rational mind. The harder it is for us to make a model that explains how even the most simple phenomena works. Theoretical physics has given up on this pursuit. What, rational explanations? It's interesting. All of this came out from Gilbert and Lewis, and by the way, all of quantum is based on what Einstein called das Slikwad, based upon the idea of a photon particle which does not exist whatsoever. I mean, I know where they got it from. It's a dielectric compression of the EMR circuit of light. Gilbert and Lewis in 1926 coined the term photon for the smallest unit of radiant energy. This theory then became a so-called quantum theory that was introduced by Einstein in 1905, and its name was adopted by Einstein, called, like I said, once again, das Lichtquant, or light quantity in German. In other words, it's a unit of energy, but no branch of science has ever defined the term energy or field. Isn't that fascinating? They never defined field, and they never defined energy. So what's a field? A field is a line of force. Well, that's completely impossible. A line of what? You know, a line is not a thing. It's a concept regarding something else. A force of what, by what, upon what. Force is not a thing at all, but I've talked about this endlessly. Einstein about the wave-particle duality. Of course, there are no dualities in nature whatsoever, implying inherent contradiction. And this is Einstein's quote. It says, it seems as though we must use sometimes the one theory and sometimes the other. In other words, this wave-particle duality nonsense. Well, at times we may use either one. We are faced with a new kind of difficulty. We have two contradictory, they're not contradictory at all. They're just, these people lack brains. We have two contradictory pictures of reality separately. Neither one of them fully explains the phenomena of light, but together they do. this wave-particle duality nonsense. There are no dualities in nature. Light's not an emission. It's not a wave, which is not a thing. There's no such thing as a wave. Here's a wave. That's my hand moving. A wave is an attributional descriptor of something else. There's no such thing as a wave. No one can point to a wave. Oh, there's waves in the ocean. Yeah, it's the water under undulation due to tidal forces or earthquakes, countless other things. You say that they're under the state of waving, and a wave is not a thing at all, rather what something else is doing. So this idea of wave-particle duality is nonsensical from top to bottom. These people can't think rationally. This is what Nikola Tesla said about those that could think deeply but not clearly. As I've said many times, insane asylums are quite full of very, very intelligent, deep thinkers. But they're in insane asylums because they can't think clearly. They can't hypothesize. They can't make rational, logical arguments for things. And you can't violate Occam's razor, especially when it comes to natural order. This idea of a duality in nature cannot be enjoined. Nobody with 2 brain cells, maybe 4 brain cells, can say that there's a duality in nature. It's like you're implying an inherent contradiction. Yeah, this is it. That's, you know, it's this very particular duality. No, it's completely impossible. Absolutely completely impossible. All of quantum is a religion. It's a belief system. They use this, it works very brilliantly in science fiction movies. But don't you understand that they've lionized, that means you put someone on a pedestal, they lionize this guy. He's not around anymore, obviously. I'm not picking on him. But you really, really, really should look at that 7-minute video. And tell me, watch the whole thing. It's only 7 minutes. He wiggles and squirms when I was like, you know, this is a really simple question. You know, he says, you know, it's a perfectly reasonable question. Even Feynman says it's a perfectly reasonable question. He would have actually come across as intelligent if he said, you know, I really have thought long about this. I don't know the answer, but I really, really want to know. I have a burning thirst and an unquenchable desire to know the answer. It's like, well, there's a smart answer. You don't know. But no. He wiggles and squirms, talks about an old woman slipping on the ice. Like, why do I keep making reference to this? This is seen, this cult of authority is seen from people that are talking about the climate, people that talk about, you know, here's a doctor, you know, who peer-reviewed your paper? Where's your PhD at? What about common sense, facts, logic, being rational and logical, you know? Stop showing me the diploma that you paid for on the wall there, which means nothing. I mean, if you can't intelligently synthesize an argument for a position, then, you know, who cares what's hanging on your wall? Who cares who peer-reviewed your last article, your last book? I'm an expert, an authority. Well, I usually say authority. There's no such thing as an authority in a formal debate. You either have the facts, logic, and evidences to back you up, or you don't. Who peer-reviewed your book, or what book or article you wrote, or what PhD you have or don't have? You know, where's William Shakespeare's PhD? Where's Pythagoras' PhD? Where's Plato's or Aristotle's PhD? Well, they didn't have one. Plotinus, Numenius, Syrianus, Iamblichus, Proclus, Porphyry, on and on and on and on and on. It's just endless. It's like this person understands and has a sharp mind, and this person does not. This cult of authority has to stop. When you believe in this, you are a product of public school systems. I know you are. Even if you went to Harvard or Yale. Well, he's a PhD. He used to be my professor. How dare you question him? When people say stuff like that, that means they have no argument. They have nothing to back themselves up with. Well, you know, where's your facts, logic, and evidences? Where is any evidence for this nonsense? This guy, please watch that 7-minute video. Just type in Feynman explains magnitude. He doesn't explain anything. This is who they consider as the god of quantum. There is nothing anybody on this earth that can point. There's quantum. Look at that right over there. You see that quantum phenomenon right over there? Here it is right there. It's quantum effect. I know you don't understand it, and it's because you don't have a PhD. You know, if you were a little bit smarter, I could explain it to you because I know the answer to this fundamentally deep question, and I have a PhD. See, it's ringing right there on the wall behind me. Yeah. That is how these people, that's the modus operandi that they have. This appeal to authority. Well, you can't enjoin, that's a fallacy in a formal debate. You can't enjoin an appeal to authority. None of the greats of field theory, vis-a-vis Faraday, Steinmetz, Heaviside, James Clerk Maxwell, Charles Proteus type, none of these people ever used anything in any of their formulas. Quantum, quantum effects, right, got the math for it right here. There's nothing in nature that is quantum. Nothing. You should look up what these same people, these relativists, say is the explanation for magnetism. Don't trust me, look it up. These are their words, not mine. I tell you no lie. Look it up. Don't take my word for it. What's going on around a magnet is the emission of virtual photons. This is like Harry Potter magic poppycock. There's no difference between Harry Potter magic nonsense, hokum, snake oil poppycock. What's going on outside of a magnet's emission of virtual photons? Yeah. They say this. You really should look that up. Well, you can't understand it because it takes postgraduate work to understand the nature of the wave-particle duality and quantum effects. That's another fallacy, another appeal to authority. I'm telling you, forget about science. You know, this video is based upon this guy, that people, they consider the god of quantum. He doesn't know anything. Smart guy? You can't. Nikola Tesla talked about people that were smart, but they can't think clearly. They're deep thinkers, but they're thinking at the bottom of the well of insanity. Cuckoo! Cuckoo! You can be quite insane and be a deep thinker, but you have to be rational and logical and be able to think clearly. You can't violate Occam's razor. You can't make Mother Nature and natural order out to be some sort of ludicrous science fiction farce. Here's a quantum effect. I can't explain it to you because you don't have a postgraduate degree. I'll remind you again, this guy was lecturing, smoking a cigarette in one and drinking bourbon on the rocks in the other. There's video of him doing that. I mean, he's got his legs crossed like a chick, and he's wearing a very... And the college kids thought he was the king of cool. Look at that man! Man, he's an expert in quantum physics, and he's a professor at the university. Man, he's smoking Lucky Strikes in one hand and bourbon on the rocks in the other. Man, I want to be like that guy when I grow up. The college kids loved him. I'm not making that up, by the way. I beg you to watch that 7-minute video. Yeah, I was reading a comment. The guy said, this guy's got no clue what magnetism is. Accurate. You cannot draw any other conclusion. You can't, so this guy said, what's going on between magnets? The interviewer, which you can't see in the video. It's a perfectly reasonable question, and then he starts talking about Aunt Minnie slipping on the ice. Literally! And then, to finish up the video, he says, I can't discuss it to you in a framework that you're more familiar with. It's basically a fancy way of him saying, I can explain it to you, but you're not smart enough to get the answer. No. Yeah. If you learn nothing else in this life, learn about fallacies and learn to reject the cult of authority. I'm extremely proud to be the first person and the only person on Earth to figure out what magnetism truly is. I've got over 1,000 videos on it. I've got a book on it. I've discussed it every which way but loose, up to down, front to back, even sideways I've explained it. Every aspect of it. Sure, you didn't understand magnetism. Richard Feynman did. Oh, you mean like in that 7-minute video where he talks about the old lady slipping on the ice? Exactly! These people literally do. think he did explain it in that video. That's not my opinion. They will say, "Yeah, it's a great explanation. I love the way Feynman explained magnetism in that video." There's the one commenter said to the other guy. It says, "One of the founding fathers of quantum electrodynamics hasn't got a clue about magnetism, you say? Oh, you're the joke of the century." It's a religion. That's a belief system, girlfriend. That's exactly what that is. It's not logical. It's not rational. Facts, logic, evidences. It's to be rational and logical, etc., etc. But don't forget, that's the guy who is considered the god of quantum. He is. I mean, I'm not making that up. He is considered to be the forefather, the founder. He's like Moses. You know, like Moses in the Bible, except he's like the Moses of quantum. He parted the Red Sea, and the answer on the other side was quantum. Oh, God. This world is so upside down and backwards. Thank you so much for watching. If you ever want to contact me, send me a email. Any donations always warmly welcome. Anybody wants an ostrich wallet? I'm going to be making 2 blood red ostrich wallets. Just send me an email. My email is in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. Quantum. It's crazy. Crazy. Actually, it's worse than crazy. It's poppycock. Nonsense.